Coming up on the Sky News Daily with me, Niall Paterson. As the world grapples with Donald Trump's trade tariffs, are metal industries in the UK beginning to buckle?
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kellner.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100, every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.
It might well be Donald Trump's favourite word, but for the rest of the world, tariffs tend to provoke concern rather than raise a smile. The Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, just the latest to warn of the dangers to our economy.
The world is a very uncertain place, and we have to sort of steer through that uncertainty. So we have to keep a very careful eye on this.
The thing is, we are already feeling the effects of US tariffs on the UK metal industry. Growth, already a huge issue, according to Mr. Bailey and, well, everyone else, could even slow further as a result. I am joined once again by Ed Conway, our economics and data editor. Hi, Ed.
Hello.
You've been travelling around the country, visiting some of the UK's remaining operational metal plants. More on those in just a second. But first of all, just remind us, exactly what is Donald Trump up to with these tariffs on metals?
So there's a whole sequence of tariffs, a whole set of them that he's already announced. Famously, there was tariffs on Canada and on Mexico, then they were withdrawn, then they were put in, then they were withdrawn again. And so those are still kind of hanging like a sword of Damocles over North America. You've got the extra 10% tariffs on China, all goods coming from China. They are in place, so that Chinese goods face an extra 10%. And then on top of that, you have specific tariffs on metals. And here, it's steel and aluminium. So as of March the 12th, kind of midnight on March the 11th, those tariffs kicked in. And part of the reason why we've been out to talk to businesses is this story feels quite abstract, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you see Donald Trump talking in the White House, he says 25%, and you kind of wonder to yourself, well, how is this actually affecting people? This economic chain reaction, is it actually happening? And the answer is, it's happening. This is not theory anymore, it's real.
Let's start with steel then, because we have been here before. I mean, Trump did put in tariffs on steel back in 2018, but these are different. How?
Yeah, so you've got the steel tariffs, which they were 25% last time, they're 25% this time around. Aluminium was 10% last time, this time it's 25%. We can talk about that in a little bit because it is kind of a big deal. Steel, though, there's a useful phrase which is quite true. If it's not made of steel, it's made with steel. Basically, everything you touch on a daily basis has either been made of steel, it's basically the main metallic object in our lives, or it's made in machines that are made of steel. So it's really important. And those steel tariffs, last time around, there were certain exceptions for things like a type of half-made steel that comes from somewhere else and then goes into a plant in America, and particular types of scrap. A lot of those exemptions have just been completely thrown away this time around, and that's having an impact already.
And where else to examine the impact of this but Steel City itself?
Sheffield.
I mean, you were there when those tariffs were kicking in, and you saw the effect of it in real time. Tell me about that.
I mean, it's crazy. So Sheffield, historically an amazing steel place. This is where stainless steel was invented. Obviously, we all know it because it's in your cutlery or your kitchen sink. It doesn't rust. That's the point of it. But it's quite hard to make, and it's actually really important for things like pipes that you're putting away and not seeing for a long time. Of all of the metals, it is among, if not the most important. And we still make a fair amount of it, not half as much as we used to.
Certainly not as much in Sheffield anyway.
No, certainly. But there is still one big furnace that's going there. And it used to be British Steel Furnace, then it went to a few other owners, and now it's owned by an Italian company called Marcegaglia. And they, yes, I've practiced that pronunciation. So this is the thing. A lot of people assume we don't have a steel industry anymore. And partly that's because there's not as many people working in it. But we are still turning out a decent amount of steel. This place is turning out tons and tons of stainless steel. 20% of their stainless steel goes to America. And part of the reason that I focused on this place, long before those tariffs actually came in, is I went in and I kind of looked at the spreadsheet of what is the stuff that we mostly export to America, and right at the top of the list is stainless steel. And so it's true, it turns out this firm is, of all the firms in the UK, the most exposed to these tariffs. It's called an electric arc furnace, and what they basically do is there's lots of scrap. And you can see it. You can see old bits of cars. You can see what look like pipes, and they probably are pipes, and kitchen sinks and things. A massive, massive amount of those are just thrown into this cauldron, basically. these big electrodes are lowered into it. And then you have this moment where suddenly there's this extraordinary roar, and it sounds like lightning is happening in there. And that's because it is. Lightning is happening inside that furnace, because that's what an electric arc furnace is. It's a controlled lightning storm. And those electrodes are creating such an enormous amount of heat and pressure and power that it melts down all of those little bits you saw a moment ago. They went in as solid metal, and now they're almost instantly being melted down into lava for almost 2,000 degrees. But there's nothing quite like it, because it is just so loud, and there's smoke, and you feel it in your body. Anyway, that all happens, the steel gets poured out and it gets kind of set, and there's various other processes that happen. And at the end, it gets turned into these long bars, billets they're known as. And that's the thing that they have been sending across to America as quickly as possible.
Why as quickly as possible?
So that's the thing. They've been getting them out of the door as quickly as they could before that March the 12th deadline, okay? And so shipping them, aware that as of that moment, midnight on the night of the 11th of March, they would have to pay the tariffs. And in March Caglia's case, they would have to pay the tariffs. Technically speaking, it's the recipient that pays the tariffs when they get imposed. But in this case, they've got one unit melting stuff down in Sheffield, and then they've got another unit in America.
So they're exporting to themselves.
Yeah, it's one company, and it's integrated, except that it's across the Atlantic. So they're sending their ships over. They've got two in the water in the run-up to that 12th of March deadline. And they are supposed to get in on like the 11th of March, the latest.
They're tracking these boats.
They're tracking them. The chief executive is literally looking on one of these vessel trackers on the screen. Is it going to get there in time? Because he's aware that if it doesn't get there in time, that is a massive bill, about $3 million they have to pay, just like that.
I'm on the edge of my seat here. What happened?
And he's watching and watching and watching. And then there's a storm in the Atlantic. Out of nowhere, these squalls and the storms slow down these ships, and they don't make it. And it was touch and go. Like, they could have made it. And if they had made it, they wouldn't have had to pay the tariffs. As it was, this company has become, as far as we know, the first major casualty of Donald Trump's tariffs in the UK, and they've had to pay $3 million just like that.
Wow. So you will have been speaking to the chief exec as this is happening in real time. I mean, is this sustainable for him as a business?
I mean, you've got to read between the lines, because he's kind of working out one day at a time. So this kind of stuff was exempted before. That's the key thing. So stuff that was known as intermediate, it's half made, leaves the UK, goes to America, their steel industry
gets repurposed.
Yeah, because their steel industry is still benefiting. And I mean, the point of all these tariffs, and we can come back to this, is Donald Trump wants to help rebuild US steel industry. So it was exempted last time. It's not exempted this time. They're hoping that Johnny Reynolds, the business secretary, can go to America and get Donald Trump to rethink. But he just came back from Washington, D.C. with nothing, as far as we can tell. So in answer to your question, reading between the lines, it looks like, yeah, there might be job losses as a result of this, because 20% of that business is now going to be tariffed.
Have we not responded?
No, the UK hasn't done anything.
Why?
Because we hope that we will be able to strike some kind of a deal, a comprehensive deal that's not just about metals, in the next few months. But with every month that goes by, you've got companies like this one and others, it's not just stainless steel, but that, as I said, that's the biggest, that are facing those tariffs. And it's not just the fact that people who export to the US suddenly have to pay 25%. It's also that because there was all this steel, imagine all those ships around the world that were heading for America. Suddenly they're not heading for America. They're looking for somewhere else to put their steel, because, no one in America wants that extra 25%. So they're sending it somewhere else. And a lot of that stuff is ending up in the UK. And so if you're a producer in the UK, you've had to contend with cheap imports for a long time. Now, there's even more of it. So for the domestic steel industry here, it is a double potential catastrophe.
But of course, it isn't, as you've already mentioned, just steel. Aluminium as well, and compared to 2018, 10% tariff back then, 25% now. Your magical mystery tour has taken you all the way to the Scottish Highlands. You lucky boy.
It just so happened I had to go to Fort William. Beautiful, beautiful part of the country, just in the shadow of Ben Nevis, the tallest peak in the UK. And this is the home to the last remaining aluminium smelter in this country. So it used to be, 75 years ago, Scotland in particular, but the UK in general, was one of the world's biggest aluminium producers. And making aluminium, it's a lot of electricity. It's a bit different from the process that I just described. Whereas you can switch on and off an electric arc furnace, the thing I mentioned, you can turn on the lightning. With this thing, aluminium, you need to keep it running all the time. A couple of centuries ago, aluminium was incredibly rare. It's not like rare in the Earth's crust. There's loads of aluminium there. But getting it out and turning that into something that's a metal is incredibly difficult. Napoleon III, to try and show off to his guests, he got them to dine on aluminium plates rather than gold because it was worth more than gold. Aluminium was worth more than gold. And then someone cracked it. It was a French person and an American person at the same time, late 1800s, cracked how to do it. And you do it with electrolysis. It was like the electrical revolution that people worked out how to kind of generate electricity. And then they come up with all these other amazing ideas. And aluminium smelting was one of them. We adopted it massively in the UK. One of the most extraordinary plants to do it was this place in Fort William, the Fort William smelter. And what's special about it, as far as anyone can tell, it's basically the only plant in the world that is structured this way. It collects the rain, it's harvesting the rain. From
there's a lot of it, right?
And there's a lot of it, yeah, particularly, this kind of part of the Highlands. It's kind of harvesting all the rain from hundreds of thousands of acres. It's so cool. There's tunnels running all the way under Ben Nevis. And all the point of that is there is a constant stream of this water that they can send down the hill into their hydroelectric turbines, which then run the cell room. And so that's part of the reason why we've shut down so much of our industry in this country, including every other aluminium smelter.
Exactly.
Because energy prices are really high, but because they've got their own dam, because they've, it all just comes from the Scottish water, they thus far, touch wood, have been able to stand, alone. But of course, now aluminium is being tariffed as well, and that's bad news for this producer.
So what were they saying to you?
They sound like they're slightly less depressed than the steelmaker. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they're not sending it directly, like the steelmaker. They're sending it to another plant, which then processes it, and then they're sending it across to America. Again, people are like, oh, we don't make anything. Actually, we're quite good at making certain types of, high precision metals. And so there's some aluminium products that we make that America will find it very hard to substitute. There is a reason why American firms are still buying lots of stuff from us and from other countries. It's because there's loads of different grades of steel. There's loads of different products.
And we have discovered those niches and inserted ourselves in.
And we're pretty good at certain things. And it's just not straightforward to just suddenly start up a furnace. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And so some of that stuff was still going to America, and the people receiving it will just have to pay more for it. But it's hard to see who kind of really benefits from this. It's quite a lot of, a lot of pain.
Mm. And from the Highlands, I hope you didn't do it in this order. Sheffield, up to the Highlands, and then what? Down to Devon.
All the way down.
You didn't look at a map first. But it's in Devon that there is perhaps a potential upside. Go on.
Yeah, so this is kind of an indirect consequence of tariffs. So down in Devon, and this is a historic place where there's been lots of mining for a long time, Devon and Cornwall, there's quite a bit of copper in the ground, and there's a lot of tin in the ground and a few other things besides. And you go around Dartmoor and you see the old mines, and it's quite, it's nice and, pretty. But there is also one of the world's biggest resources of tungsten.
And what's the utility of tungsten?
And so it's hard. That's the thing about tungsten. It's hard, and it's got the highest melting point of any metal. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you want to do anything hard, if you want drill bits, for mining or for screwdrivers at home, tungsten tip screws, you need tungsten. And it's also used for electronics as well. So in circuits, in semiconductors, because it's got a really high melting point, if you're sending a lot of something really hot through it, then tungsten's really useful. All of these governments have what they call their critical minerals lists.
Yes.
Tungsten is on everyone's critical minerals list, including NATO.
Let's not tell Donald Trump, shall we?
Well, they're conscious of this. When it comes to defence, you need tungsten. If you want armour-piercing rounds, you need tungsten. There is no coincidence that the last time this mine was really working in a decent way was back in World War II. This place, it's called Hemerdon Mine. It's been running in World War I, World War II, and then it's just struggled ever since. Everyone within the world of mining has known about this resource for a long time. They've just struggled to make a success of it, except in times of war.
And that's the point, isn't it? That is where we are right now, and this is where the opportunity is, presumably.
That's part of the opportunity, which is that people are focusing on defence. I spent a lot of time in the last 5 years or so talking to people in metals and going to smelters and all of that. A year or two ago, they'd be talking about sustainability and saying, look, this is the most sustainable furnace in the world, net zero, blah, blah, blah. Now they're all saying, look, this could be used for weapons. This could be used for defence. The latest ships that we are making, military ships up in Devon, Glasgow, I don't think there's an ounce of British steel in them. We import the steel. And so that's a serious conversation about, should we be making that steel here, and could we be making that steel here? And the same thing goes for tungsten. And that's the point, because, punchline here, right now, 80% of the world's tungsten comes from China. And here's why this is an opportunity that derives from tariffs. In the face of those 10% tariffs I mentioned right at the start that China's now facing from Donald Trump, China was like, well, I tell you what, we'll just put a limit on how much tungsten we're sending out around the world. And so, all of a sudden, this mine actually is even more important than people thought it was before. It's hard, and it's unpredictable, and you never know what you're going to get. But there is an opportunity there at the same time, if only Britain could make it happen.
You're at the conclusion of your trip around the UK.
No, it's only just begun, Neil.
Oh, God, really? We're going to be doing this again, are we?
There'll be more.
At this stage in your trip around the United Kingdom, are you more or less confident in the UK metals industry's ability to survive this trade war?
Every time you go to one of these places, you're reminded that for all that we often tell ourselves that we don't make amazing things, we do. This plant in Fort William is amazing. It's not the most advanced plant in the world, but it produces a really good quality of aluminium, which is bought around the world. We are still incredibly good at making stainless steel. We still make stuff, we do. But every single year there's something, whether it's higher energy prices or these tariffs, that just seem to make it harder to do that job. But for the most part, there's nothing that this government or the previous government has done that can compare with any of the assistance that, for instance, European countries or America have given to a lot of their producers, all of which leads you to suspect that it will get tougher in the next few years rather than easier. And I think in an era where it's going to be more geopolitically roller coaster and where you kind of need to think about where you're getting stuff from, that should give everyone, I think, pause for thought. But the problem is that economists would be like, well, you know, if it's cheaper to buy it from somewhere else, then let's do that. So, you know, you do the math, as they say.
I certainly will. Ed, many thanks. You can read more of his analysis, just head to skynews.com. And with Trump continuing to describe April the 2nd as his tariff liberation day, this isn't a topic that's going away. So perhaps now is time to follow The Daily. Should be dead easy through your podcast app. And just one more thing before we let you go. The podcast team have launched a short survey. We want to learn more about you and your listening habits. It only takes a few minutes to complete, and your input will help shape The Daily. The link is in the episode description, so give us a click and let us know what you think. We're back again tomorrow.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kellner.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100, every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.